What's going on, guys? Hey, I wanted to come to you this evening and bring to you a second part of the podcast that a friend of mine and I did last night called The Road to Hell. And The Road to Hell is about how we're more concerned with looking virtuous than actually being virtuous. And how we're too afraid to stand up to things that we should stand up to because we don't want to look to be mean, and we want to look virtuous and kind, and whatever. It's like we're more concerned with that than actually doing the right thing. And but anyways, take a listen to the podcast and let me know what you think. Thanks. Again, that kind of brings me to my next point. It's like, to me, we got to understand that we have to be brave in a lot of ways if we want to kind of fight back against the current narrative. And I'm not saying that we need to always engage with every little thing that's being said, but if we're going to kind of get things back on track, we're going to have to be brave enough to call wrong, right is right, and wrong is wrong, and we got to be brave enough to say that, to stand up and say, screw that, it's wrong.
I agree, because we've become so relativistic that we get this idea that, well, it may not be right for me, but it's right for them. There are some things that I feel like should be considered absolutes. It's not right for me to kill people, and it's not right for you to kill people.
Right. Yep. It's like there is no reason for us to be out there killing people unless they're self-defense or something. We have to, but we understand. Again, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a really good point, because we have made every situation relevant to us, and then we're trying to make the world believe that everything is different for each person.
Yeah.
And it's not. I mean, again, especially we do have the point of view of growing up intersex. It's really kind of been eye-opening for me. I remember many years ago you telling me that we're fighting against the medical community intervening in kids' lives before their particular age and before they can make a decision for themselves.
And that's diametrically opposed to what's going on now within the trans community. They're wanting children to be able to have these interventions before I feel like they can give informed consent. In the intersex community that I've been working with for so long, we're fighting the opposite battle. We're trying to stop medical intervention, if it's not medically necessary, until the child is able to make an informed decision. And and I make no apologies for where I'm coming from. I have been startled at how much power the trans community has to be such a small population.
Yep.
And I don't understand. I can't understand where that's coming from. There must be a lot of money behind it, or there must be some agenda that is behind this that I'm not quite aware of, because it's a very small percentage of the population. And you and I both, I don't give a shit if someone wants to change their body and they're an adult. But I do care if you're going to make me, if you're going to try to control my speech and get people knocked off, deplatformed and all of this because you're unhappy.
Yep. No, you're right. It's like, and again, the greatest sin now is misgendering somebody. like, you know, if you look at them and you're like, yeah, that looks like a dude. You know, it's like if well, I identify as a lady, how dare you? And it's like within 10 minutes you're deplatformed, you're yelled at in social media, and you're fired from your job within, you know, it's like, you know, no, look, man, you're 6'5", 240, 5 o'clock shadow. You're wearing a dress. I'm sorry, I misgendered you, but the fact is, you're a guy.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like, but you know, the greatest sin now is calling somebody what they appear to be. I remember seeing a video of a woman, quote unquote, really a man, at I think it was a Sonic drive-through, and he was like your workers misgendered me. They called me sir, and the manager was like, well, I'm sorry, I'm very sorry, but you know, he wasn't like too upset about it, but he said, I'm sorry, I'll talk to them. And well, that's not good enough. I'm you know, it's like, wait a minute. And the guy asked me, goes, do I look like a man? And the manager looked, it was all recorded. The manager looked at that person, got it for a minute, and said, well, honestly, yeah, I would probably call you a he. And she turned the camera around and faced her, and it was obviously a man wearing lipstick and a wig and a dress. I mean, but it was obviously a man. So, again, like you were saying, the delusion, you know, the camel and the horse thing, you know, it's like we got to pretend that I'm looking at a man in front of me. Yeah, you're wearing lipstick and a dress, but you're a man. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I can tell, you know, I mean, as a matter of fact, you got a beard.
You know, but, I wish we dealt with the real problems in this country. We have really pressing problems, like economic collapse, and we're sitting around worried about pronouns. Let's deal with real problems.
It's like our enemies, or you know, China or whatever.
Oh, they're laughing at us.
They got to be looking at us, thinking to themselves, where you know they're training their soldiers, and their soldiers are, you know, lifting weights and jump through, you know, obstacle courses and stuff, and our soldiers are arguing about how upset they are because their sergeant referred to them with the wrong pronouns. Yeah. It's like, you know, how much bullshit is this?
You know, if you're an adult and you're upset about a pronoun, you ain't got problems, baby.
Yep. We're you know, it's kind of like I was reading in and that's one thing, you know, I know we're going to get into next time, but I was reading through the Bible, Timothy, and in Timothy 1 and 2, and they were saying, and again, I'm not an overly, you know, religious person at all, but they were saying that, you know, basically I can't remember the verse, but if you look up, Timothy 2, chapter 4, verse 3, and those, it's really kind of eye-opening to our particular situations, and it's also eye-opening. The one author, was it Dostoevsky? How do you pronounce his name? Yep.
I like him.
He was basically saying that when a society, I forgot the exact quote, but he was saying when society has reached like comfort level, like we're full, like all of our needs are taken care of, we start inventing problems.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing.
It's like, yeah, we're inventing problems, and it's like, you know, this, you know, up to 5 minutes ago, this didn't exist. It wasn't a problem. It's like, you know, real problems are people without enough food to eat, people without enough, without, adequate shelter, without, it's like, again, and the ones that buy into this whole bullshit of what's going on now are the New York liberals, they're sitting there in their Teslas going, yeah, they're right. Because these people are vetting problems, and the privileged liberal left are the ones that kind of boister it. They kind of back them up. It's a place where they can feel better about their privileged lives.
Yeah.
It's like, I can feel better about my privilege from a place of backing up these poor transgendered advocates, or these poor Black Lives Matter, activists, or they get behind that because honestly they got nothing else to do and stuff.
But they're just giving lip service. They're just giving lip service. They're not really doing anything. They're just and what they're and a big part of this is just driving wedges between everybody.
Yeah,
it's just driving wedges and making society more fractured, one group from another.
Yeah, it's kind of the whole, the whole class identification, the whole, like breaking everyone up into groups, and it's like we're more than that. Like I was saying in the beginning, all men are not the same. You and I are different men. All men are not the same. We're all different, and glad we are different.
Well, that makes life interesting.
It makes life interesting, and you have talents that I don't have,
and vice versa.
Yeah, we complement each other, and some of us are made differently than other ones are made, and we have different talents, different mindsets, and but I think with this class identification or this group identification that's going on right now is they're trying to, like you said, kind of fracture people, groups, and put people in places where they don't really belong. We all men don't belong here. All black people don't belong there. All women don't belong here. All Asian people don't belong here. We all, it's like we all are different. And there's more diversity within
each group,
a group, than there is without.
See, I like people for who they are as an individual, not for their group identity.
Right.
I'm friends with you not because you're, quote, a white, straight male. It's because you're Eric.
Right. Yep.
There are a lot of white, straight males I wouldn't like. There are a lot of gay males I wouldn't like.
Yep.
There are a lot of intersex people I don't like. There's such a variety, and to keep us in all of these different groups, it just keeps everybody down fighting against each other while the people at the top are in control. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And we're just being pawns.
Again, one thing, again, with this whole mess I was trying to kind of get to in the blog post I made is this whole idea of not being responsible for our own lives. And, that is kind of the key. We're not going to, everything that happens to us, we're not going to be able to control that. It's like we're certain things are going to happen to us that we can't control. And the only thing we can control is how we pull ourselves out of that. And, that again, that book, Man's Search for Meaning. What was he? What's his name? Frankl. Yep. And it's like, again, he's very much a big proponent of that mindset that you are not a victim of your circumstance. There's something to go through, and something, your particular thing, you may not have control over that, but you control what you do with what happens.
Yeah, your reaction. You're responsible for your reaction. And your reaction is what's really important. And but here's the problem with putting people in groups. It means that the individual is no longer responsible, or is responsible because he's in a group. It means that if you're in the victim group, you're not responsible for all the things that you've done that have not been good in your life and have kept you down. And if you're in the oppressor group, you're responsible for things that happened 200 years ago. So it's instead of individual responsibility, we're putting the emphasis on group responsibility, which really means that no individual has any responsibility.
Yep. And that is how they fracture us, and if you believe that there's nothing you can do to improve your circumstances in your life, then you might as well just go out and do drugs and
that's what people are doing.
Have babies.
What people are doing.
Yep. It's like, because again, you have no control over your own circumstances.
Those people over there are responsible for my problems.
Yep. For my problems. And it's like, well, and it's like, if we're truly trying to help people, that's one thing. Even with my kids, if I'm truly trying to help my kids, I need to let them know that if they want to do something, they can do this. And if they want to change something, they're going to have to work to change it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's one thing I wrote down right before we started the conversation. I wrote down one thing with the whole personal responsibility thing that I've learned is, and I don't mean this in any way bad to my parents at all, but one thing I learned, and I kind of came to later in life, and I wish I would have come to it a lot earlier, but is that adult kids need to strike out on their own. They need, you need to taste responsibility when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
And I did, but there was a certain hovering over the top being by my parents. And that created, and again, I love them both, but that created a certain level of dependence upon the parents. Mm-hmm. And not only does that create certain dependence, but that makes the child, in this case now the adult child, feel that they don't have the power to do what needs to be done to improve their own lives. And that's something we need to really, if we're trying to cultivate people that are competent and can stand on their own 2 feet, we don't need to make them poor little victims and put them into a victim class, because again, you're not going to help those people.
No.
And you're only going to create, kind of that
dependency.
Kind of dependence, yeah. I feel a lot of young men, in a way, have fathers that kind of hover. They kind of live in the shadow of dad. Mm-hmm. They kind of live in that, and it's like, again, the old saying, you can't grow. A tree can't grow living in the shadow of the tree.
Right.
It's like you're not going to grow, and it's like and it's like, and the mother in a little way, we need to start getting our own, because fathers sometimes kind of limit us by shadowing, and mothers kind of limit us in a way by, and I hate to say this, but kind of meddling in affairs in order to keep them within her moral class. Like if she has a certain set of morals and values and whatever, she wants to keep that child there, even if that child's 25. And it's like, that's not healthy. That child needs to the child's no longer a child now.
Right.
That child needs to, that adult needs to do their own thing and have their own set of morals, their own set of values, and they don't need to be in the shadow of anyone.
They need to live and learn. They have to have the opportunity to experience life so they can learn to live it.
Right.
And
again, that's one thing. I remember when I was in my early 30s, I remember my wife's grandfather. He's passed away now, but I remember him saying to me, I had taken a job where I wasn't working with my dad, but I was close to my dad in that position. And, he was friends with the guy that owned the company that I went to work for. And great guy, nothing bad by him, but it's like, I remember her grandfather saying to me, you've got to go your own way. You've got to have your own path. You got to, that's only going to limit you. And I can't remember the wording he used, but that's basically what it says. It's only going to limit you. And he was an old man from Mississippi, barely a high school education, if he had a high school education, and a retired truck driver. But he has some wisdom. He understood that fact. And I think that's something that again, we're making people dependent on the government.
In
a lot of ways, putting them in these victim classes. So in a way, we're doing to these people that parents sometimes do to their kids by trying to keep them in a certain
the government
place.
is rewarding it.
Yeah, and again, we always talk about the who is now the father in some of the black families. It's like, we're and again, not trying to be controversial, but it's like, why are these women going to settle down, and why are these men going to settle down if, the marrying them might be the worst thing, because they look at it as, well, at least if I don't marry him,
I get money.
And make him, I get money from the government. And it's like, and it kind of allows for a certain lifestyle to kind of, I was watching a podcast, I forgot the guy's name, but Patrick Bet-David, I believe, is I think he owns Valuetainment, and he was interviewing a socialist professor. I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but I can't remember it. But I think he teaches at a Riverside Community College. I don't know where that is, but anyways, this guy looked like Karl Marx. I would say he's probably. I would say he's probably not much older than I am, but his beard is all white and his hair is all white.
Yeah.
And he's got long hair and a big old bushy beard. It looks like, Karl Marx. It looks like pictures of Karl Marx, old pictures. But anyways, there was something he said that really kind of made me think, well, that's kind of in line with what we're talking about. Is he said that all we need to live in society. He's very, very Marxist. he said we need to live in a society where we value human life. And it's like, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. But he said, everyone needs to share equally in the bounty. It's like, no, if we all like, I don't mean this wrong. We can't. If you're doing 10 times the work that I am, and I'm sitting home, making babies and smoking pot all day, well, like, why should I get what you get? And you would think to yourself, family, like, you know what? I'm not doing this shit anymore because Eric's sitting there on his fat ass and ain't doing a damn thing instead of smoking pot.
And he's coming over and stealing all my food.
Yep. Right. It's like, you would say, I'm not doing it anymore. So what are we rewarding? What are we getting through to people? We're going to give them what they want, even though they're not contributing to anything?
That's right.
I mean, it's like, why are we doing that?
Well, see, here, again, can you imagine in an agrarian society where, each person had his little farm? And a lot of the people just decided, we're not going to do anything this year. And we're just going to go steal the neighbor's food, and they should have to distribute it equally with all the people who did nothing. How long would that society last?
Right.
They would starve.
Yep, exactly.
They would starve to death.
Yeah, because again, eventually people be like, I'm not the actual producers would be like, I'm not going to produce. And again, I have my problems with certain rich people or certain, it's like certain things, sure, they're not, I'm not saying they're great but it's like, and I'm not saying I'm a huge Jeff Bezos fan or whatever, but it's like the guy started a company, built into this huge mega company. He, has, like 1.3 or 1.5 million employees. And, if he was not rewarded for doing this work with the money he's made, why the hell would he do it? I mean, what? Yeah, I mean, if he had to take, 75 or 100% of his wealth and redistribute it, it's like, why would he be in? I mean, it's like, I got an idea to do something, but I'm not going to do it because why would I? I'm going to profit the same as anyone else, so I'm not going to.
I know everybody's heard this before, but this is what I consider socialist virtue. Socialists think they're being virtuous by redistributing wealth. Now, how would you feel if I went around, because I am virtuous, and I come to your house and steal half your money and give it to your neighbor, and then I go to this person's house and steal half their money and give it to this other neighbor, and I haven't taken anything from my pocket. I'm just taking your money and giving it to someone else. Well, that's not virtuous at all.